The whole planet is holding its breath on the eve of an election that's already shaken the two major parties to their core and could mark another major turning point for this 240-year-old democracy. Hello, everyone. I'm François Picard. The France24 Debate is in Washington for 3 days. We're in the company of correspondent Phillip Crowder and of France24 commentator Douglas Herbert. Now, after the stump speeches, the fundraising, the straw polls, the primaries, the debates, it's all down to an election between two familiar faces, a divisive election, a very polarized United States of America, and two very different visions of what should be.
They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists.
The American people are sick and tired of hearing about your damn emails.
Yes, we're going to have the wall, and yes, Mexico is going to pay for the wall 100%.
A man you can bait with a tweet is not a man we can trust with nuclear weapons.
I don't know what I said. I don't remember.
You could put half of Trump supporters into what I call the basket of deplorables. The racist, sexist, homophobic, xenophobic.
But we have some bad hombres here, and we're going to get them out.
Yeah, certainly a campaign unlike any other, and they'll be voting in just a few hours. Douglas Herbert, what are the keys to watch?
Well, the things that we all have been watching, because you say they will be voting in a few hours, but the reality is Americans have been voting now for weeks. The early vote is larger than it's ever been. We've had tens of millions of Americans
like one-third of the votes will have already been cast.
One-third of the, almost 40%, but it's the highest ever, a record number. And what's interesting here is because of this unprecedented number of early voters, pollsters are already trying to give an indication of what's happening, and what we're seeing, or at least what we're told people are seeing, is a surge of sorts for Hillary Clinton from Latino voters. We were told that she wasn't getting the turnout among African American and black voters, but that perhaps it was offset by Latino voters. This is a key thing everyone's going to be watching on Election Day. Will this all be borne out by the results? Because Hillary Clinton does need that Hillary coalition, the coalition that Barack Obama had of women, of Latinos and African Americans, to offset the Donald Trump mostly white, mostly male, mostly non-college degree, but not entirely so, vote. It's going to be very interesting. And obviously the conspiracy theories. Will Donald Trump, right up until the wire, will he continue to hold out the prospect of either A, not recognizing the results of this election should Hillary Clinton be declared the winner, or will he declare it fraudulent in the aftermath? Yeah, beyond Trump himself, both parties rocked to the core by this campaign. What will be the lasting scars of that? Both parties will have to do a lot of rebuilding in the aftermath. You're absolutely right, Francois, in the sense that the Republican Party is no longer a Republican Party. It is many separate parties that, under the banner of something called Republican Party, you have a lot of Republicans in this race, right up until the Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan, who've barely been able to say the name Donald Trump, even though these people claim to endorse or vote for him often. In the case of the Democrats, we know with the Bernie Sanders element early on in the primary season, you have a large contingent of the Democratic Party which feels very alienated and still feels like Hillary Clinton doesn't respond to their needs, and that's something that's going to have to be addressed going forward. Okay, so when we're looking at those early results that are coming in, what's the one or two states that you'll be focusing on, that you'll be obsessing about, Douglas? Well, me and the rest of America are all going to be looking at Florida. It's one of the early states that will be reporting. It has 29 electoral votes. We all remember Florida from the 2000 election. Everything always seems to hang on Florida, literally. It's a fascinating state because we had heard reports early on that Hillary Clinton wasn't getting as many of the African-American votes in the early voting that her campaign perhaps would have wanted. But later on, more recently, we've been hearing that it's been offset by a surge in Latino votes. She really needs that. That's part of her coalition there. Florida's a fascinating state. It's really about 100 states in one state. You have the Miami area, which votes one way, and then you have the so-called Panhandle. So it's a state that has a lot of faces, and people are going to be watching it. It's on a razor wire right now, and it can make or break the campaign, because if Donald Trump loses Florida, he has an extremely narrow path to the White House. All right, the uncertainty that we've been talking about, and the shifting values that Douglas was mentioning inside of the major parties. Phillip Crowder witnessed them firsthand when he went to Western Pennsylvania.
With the specter of Election Day hanging over them, The crowds again line the streets of Aliquippa. The former president, from a time of economic upturn, has come to a town where the population is now a third of what it once was. Clinton is watched by former steel industry workers like Noel Wilson.
There's a lot of people for Hillary's opponent in this area, as well as for her, right? Wait, as well as for her.
I remember when he came here before, and usually when the presidents come through Aliquippa, they get nominated. Just like I can remember when JFK was in the back, about a half a block from here.
But that block doesn't really exist anymore. This is the Rust Belt, where steel used to be king. The steel mill here closed in 1984.
Used to have all stores on both sides of the avenue. All the stores. Used to be stores. People used to come from miles everywhere. Pittsburgh.
Economic depression has led to something else, a devastating crack epidemic in Aliquippa.
Everything's coming full circle.
Right.
Trust me. It might be another 10 years down the road. I can't tell you how much dough we've taken off the street this year. Just tons of it, tons of it.
This is all the signs that I have left.
A lack of law and order, jobs that have gone overseas. The Republican Party, led by Trump, is making inroads.
Actually, a lot of Democrats that come in getting the signs, and I'm talking to people that work in different areas that are Democratic, and they're telling me that we're voting for Trump secretly. So, that's pretty cool.
And that's one of the Democrats' biggest worries, that the polls might not be showing that secret enthusiasm for Trump.
And we're with Phillip Crowder, who filed that report from Aliquippa, Pennsylvania. We saw at the end of that report something that's key. People telling us, oh, they're telling the pollsters one thing, but on election day they're going to do another.
That's a real possibility. That's the kind of thing that's happened in France, for example, where people don't really admit to who they might be voting for on the far right side. But the polls are so accurate in the United States and have been in the past that I think we can be relatively confident in the outcome of this election, or at least what the polls are saying right now, which means that Hillary Clinton is doing that little bit better than Donald Trump. But of course, everybody knows this is an election that won't be decided on the national level where she is ahead. Will be decided in those all-important swing states, and that's where things are very much in the balance. Some real 50-50 races going on, the likes of Florida and Ohio and North Carolina. Those are the states we'll be looking at on election day, and that will make the difference.
But we've seen people who usually vote, and you've reported on this in places like Ferguson, people who usually vote who maybe won't go vote, and then people who've never voted before who are going to vote.
It's that enthusiasm gap. What Hillary Clinton needs is that Obama coalition, as it's called a lot of the time. These are African-American voters, first-time voters, young university students, for example. All of those have needed to be motivated by the Hillary Clinton campaign over the last few days to get them to the polls. After all, voting is already underway in the United States, and we already know that in some states the African-American vote is that little bit lower in terms of turnout than it was 4 years ago. If Hillary Clinton gets the turnout that Obama had 4 years ago, and especially 8 years ago, then she will be fine.
All right, and just one other thing. When you think back, Phillip, to your coverage 4 years ago, why is it so bitter?
I've thought about that for a long time. It's an opposition to Obama, first of all. I would say a large part of this country hasn't come to accept that he became a U.S. president 8 years ago. There's a large part of middle America that simply does not like that man and now wants to get rid of him. He'll, of course, be gone, but they see Hillary Clinton as a continuation of the Obama administration. Then there's, of course, that anti-establishment vote that we've seen in Europe in many, many countries, and that we're seeing here in the United States as well. I think it has to do with Congress being so incredibly unpopular right now. People are fed up with the politics of Washington, and they see the White House as being part of that. There is a lot of ill will towards politics right now, and I think that in part at least explains the Trump phenomenon.
All right, on the night, both candidates in New York City, where they'll be just a few blocks apart. Our coverage there begins with Jessica Le Masurier.
Will Hillary Clinton become the first female president of the United States and make history? Well, we'll find out on Tuesday night. I'll be here at the Javits Center in downtown Manhattan, on the west side near the Hudson River. This is where Hillary Clinton will be. She is hoping that she is going to be having a huge party here sometime after 9 p.m. when the polls close. We will find out whether or not she has indeed won the race against Donald Trump. She's already planned for a barge on the Hudson River to shoot fireworks over New York City in celebration. It's clear why she chose this spot. It has an enormous glass ceiling, and she's repeatedly gone on about how she hopes to figuratively bust through the highest glass ceiling that there is to become the first female president of this country. She'll, on election night, be literally standing under a huge glass ceiling. Now, Donald Trump will also be in New York City that night, and New Yorkers are saying, well, don't jump the gun, Hillary. Don't plan your party too soon, because it's not certain that you're going to win, despite the fact that New York is mostly Democrat. Across the country, we have seen that the polls are very tight, so we just don't know who is going to win this race.
I've been out and about here around the Javits Centre, which at the moment is a bit of a no man's land, and most people around here seem to be for Trump, although Hassan, who's set up his food truck here, is worried that Trump is a xenophobe.
He doesn't hate Arabs.
I can't vote for someone who might be indicted as a president of the United States. I feel like democracy is not going to be strong if that's the case. I don't love Trump, but I'll vote for Republican policies and less taxes, stronger national defense, and that's the reason why I'm voting for Trump.
I found it to be a little bit worrying how close the race is going to be. Even if she were a man, I would still be voting for her. So I don't think that really matters to me. I mean, it's a wonderful thing if she does win, and she will be the first female president, but I'm not voting for her just because she's a female.
I think for me, Trump is going to be one of the very good president.
Why?
Because I feel he like everything the truth, and they say everything the truth. And then the kind of billionaire the guy he is right now, he don't need to be president. I think he tried to be president just to do something better for this country.
It's the first time, you know, in 72 years that two New Yorkers have been vying for the presidency. And indeed, this has been a campaign full of mudslinging and nastiness, as gritty as this city itself. Let me now take you up to the Donald Trump camp. That is where our correspondent, Catherine Norris-Trent, will be bringing you the latest.
Yes, that's right, Jessica. I'm outside the Midtown Hilton Hotel here in Manhattan, and this is where Donald Trump's headquarters are going to be on election night. Not, in fact, at Trump Tower, which is just a few blocks away. This is where his campaign says they're going to be holding their victory party. So publicly, at any rate, they're remaining confident. Donald Trump himself has been crisscrossing the United States this Monday in a last-minute sprint finish. He's been heading to key battleground states, including Pennsylvania, North Carolina and Florida. He needs to win all of those, and his ground campaign, local campaigners at a local level, his ground operation is nowhere near as big as Hillary Clinton's. His campaign have also been trying to keep him very much on message now, trying to make him appear presidential and avoid any gaffes. They've taken away direct access he has to his Twitter account, in fact, trying to avoid any last-minute upsets.
Yeah, Catherine Norris-Trent, Jessica Le Mesurier, just part of the team that will be going to throughout election night on France24. You'll be able to follow it on France24.com. When we come back, Annette Young in the studio will give us the look from the other side of the Atlantic on this election. You're watching the France24 Debate.